Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Backlot Banter with your favorite bios in the whole wide world. It's me, your host, Tanner Dykstra, and your co-host, if you just look over to, I don't know, the left, right, up, down, diagonal, cattywampus, wherever's.
Yeah,
it's Tucker Hazel.
like this on these videos. We're usually parallel, but now we're parallel a different way. Or is that also parallel? I don't know.
We're cattywampus in some sorts of ways, and we're here to talk about the June 2023 box office, giving a bit of a recap for an odd month. A month that is has its highs and its lows, its positives and its negatives. But before we get into all of those things and some more, I want you to subscribe to Backlot Banter. Big surprise. I want you to like this video. I want you to join the Discord server. What a shocker. I want you to join the Discord server. Hey, we have a Discord server.
You never expected that.
Discord server link is in the description. There you can talk about movies, video games, I don't know, comic books, anime. Yeah. I think we have an anime channel. Music. We have a music channel.
Do we? I have it muted.
Yeah, as you would.
I've never checked it once.
Or things that are not in pop culture. Just tell us about your day, and we'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
That's about it, though, Tucker.
Yeah.
What do you, Tucker? I don't do this, Tucker. What do you think? Give me your one sentence thought on June 2023 at the box office.
Can I go one word?
Yes,
can a word
I'd
count
love
as a
that.
sentence?
Absolutely, it can.
I guess if you're like, damn, like technically that's like a sentence because a period at the end. What about bizarre? Because I think going into this month, it was packed and we had high hopes for basically everything. But the story of the box office over the course of this month has shifted and changed week to week. Things that were failures became successes. Things that were projected to be gigantic slipped down and down and down. Mm-hmm. It's insane. And it's going to be very, very fun to cover. Because even if not everything did well this month, it's all fun to talk about. There's no like, oh, yep, I guess this came out and did fine, whatever. No, this is all fucking strange.
Yeah, it is all strange. And Tucker, let's just dive right into the strangeness of it all and look at the top 10 domestic openings of the month.
And you know what? I actually got to say, June, you did good because this is actually a top 10 where everything's a repute. We don't have fucking BTS sneaking in the bottom there or Jesus Christ. Like sometimes we have.
Well, Tucker, we'll have a little bit of Jesus Christ next month or this coming month, the month that we're in right now.
Oh,
Jesus Christ. I said Jesus Christ tangential. But Tucker, Spider-Man is my Jesus Christ in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And he topped the box office this month. Many different versions of him did with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, opening to 120 million buckaroos.
Damn.
Followed closely by, or not closely, by half, actually. Transformers Rise of the Beast with 61. Ooh. Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, behind there.
You can say close, yeah.
Yeah, with $60 million. Then
also
The Flash, also close with 55. Elemental
shouldn't have been close, but it was close.
Then a bit of dip into Elemental at number 5 with $29 million. Rounding out the rest of that top 10 are No Hard Feelings, The Boogeyman, Asteroid City, The Blackening, and everyone's favorite, Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken.
Yeah.
And Tucker, I believe we both are 9 for 10. Oh, actually, you're 8 for 10. I'm 9 for 10 this month. Neither of us saw Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken.
Yeah, and I didn't see The Blackening, so oops. Yeah. Oops, but that's pretty good. That's a passing grade.
In terms of predictions, though, Tucker, we did not get a passing grade. I think we both did quite poorly, especially with our...
We actually got 3 out of 5 of them in the right place.
Oh, what? Oh, we did get Indiana Jones at number 3. Yes. It's our 2 and 4 that are all mounted up here. Yeah,
and I'm gonna give us a gigantic pat on the back here because I think that it was the safest to predict that the Flash would open bigger. Everything leading up to it was indicating that it was going to do fine for itself, and then it didn't. And we will certainly get to that, and that it didn't in any way. But also the fact that Indiana Jones and Transformers are like $1 million apart from each other. Like, those 3 really could have gone almost in any order.
They were very close.
It's not like we're like, oops, we like double predicted. Because sometimes you'll put your numbers on this and you'll be like wrong by half or whatever. Or by $15 million. And that's something to shake a stick at. But nothing here to shake a stick at.
All right, Tucker. Well, let's potentially shake a stick at me. Let's recap what I said these numbers, what they would actually open to. Let's have a little fun here.
Okay. I don't know if we've ever done this before.
Tucker, I said Across the Spider-Verse would open to $120 million. So,
on the nose. Perfect.
big pat on the back from me. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank the Academy and the box office goers of the United States. Then at number 2, I said The Flash would open to 110. Open to half of that.
There's a half right there.
Indiana Jones, I said 100. It opened to 60 in reality.
Close to half.
Transformers, I said $45 million. It did 61.
Yeah.
And Elemental, I said 35. And that was pretty close.
That's pretty close, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're like... Actually, quite similar. You're like 3 for 5 there on being close.
Yeah. Okay.
But you also had a lot more faith in back-to-back blockbusters performing well week on week.
It seems that Hollywood did too.
Well, this year has shown that is just not possible.
Yeah.
In the slightest.
Let's get into Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, okay?
Yes.
Let's take a look here. And as I said, maybe the only full-hearted success that we have this month, with a grand whopping total of $645 million at the worldwide box office, doing very well for itself, of course, critically as well. 95 certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 9.1 on IMDb, an A cinema score. Just brilliant stuff for Across the Spider-Verse.
Just everything all around. Everyone's happy with it. Everyone's loving it. It's making a lot of money.
It's even slung its way.
Nothing this summer can say.
Yeah, it's also slung its way into the Best Picture conversation in the middle of the summer.
We'll see if that pans out.
Yeah.
I personally don't put any stock in that.
But that is just how much people are loving and how much of a success this film is.
And it's like number 9 on the Letterboxd Top 250 right now.
Yeah.
Which is actually a very big surprise, good on you, Spider-Verse, because they redid their numbers this month. Letterboxd rebalanced the way that they count things in their top 250, and lots of things dropped a lot, but not Spider-Verse. Spider-Verse is actually still up there.
Yeah, Spider-Verse dropped from number 1 to number 9, and as it stands, is still the highest rated animated film on Letterboxd and on IMDb.
Yep. Yeah, and it also did something that is very rare, only repeated once in the last 2 years, which is that it returned to number 1. After taking a break. Top Gun Maverick did that last year. I believe it was because of...
Cinema Day.
I forgot the name, but in September, it returned to number 1, which is insane.
Yes.
But after 4 weeks, Spider-Verse popped back up, which is mostly just a testament to how there wasn't what we call competition here.
Yeah, just some shaky results in the rest of the month, but...
Yeah. But I also do want to congratulate Spider-Verse for not only being a success all around, but being the success that the first one probably should have been. Of course, that is a widely revered film. It won Best Animated Feature. It's considered one of the best comic book movies of all time, that Into the Spider-Verse is. But didn't actually make a lot of money. Total 384 on a budget of 90. It did fine for itself.
Yeah.
But it was the lowest grossing Spider-Man movie, I believe. Unless you count Morbius, that's obvious.
Don't count Morbius.
But Across the Spider-Verse has just become like a full-fledged thing, even surpassing some of the live-action Spider-Man movies. I believe by the end of its run, it probably will have passed Homecoming, but it also has passed both Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 already. So Sony, in their own property, not tied to the MCU, finally has successful... Actually, I guess... Okay, the Venom movies make money. I don't want to admit it, but they make money.
They do.
But God, good for Spider-Verse. God damn.
Tucker, I want to congratulate myself a little bit because Tucker, I want you to cast your mind back to a video we did about a month and a half or 2 months ago.
Jeez.
The domestic, our domestic top 10 predictions, and you called me crazy for saying that Spider-Verse would be the number one summer blockbuster domestically this year. And I said $400 million for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and you scoffed. Abram scoffed. The world scoffed, Tucker.
Yeah.
But
stuck by it.
But I stuck by it, and look where we are. $360 million at the domestic box office. It is presumably going to come out on top this month unless we get a smash hit in Mission Impossible or Barbie or Oppenheimer or something like that. Just completely unprecedented. But I'm saying, Tucker, I did it. This is a big win.
Mission Impossible, I think, really kind of being the only thing this summer that could possibly contend with that. Actually, Barbie might also, depending on how well that does. But we're talking about next month, all right?
Yeah, we'll get there.
A lot of the things that I thought would be competing with it have not been competing with it, or at least it blew past all the things that I thought would be competing with it. Number one, The Little Mermaid doing fine. Not doing exceptionally, but doing fine. And The Flash not doing fine. Not at all.
not at all doing
And we're
fine.
going to get there.
Is there anything else to say about the box office success, or just the success overall of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse?
It's interesting. I have seen so much praise for Across the Spider-Verse that there's one detail on here that I find interesting or peculiar in a small way, is that it has a lower Rotten Tomatoes and cinema score than the original movie, though from what I've seen, I believe most people I've seen talk about it think this is the better movie. Though I think it's kind of neck and neck, and obviously it's neck and neck with all these stats anyway. But I just think that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Really, this is an A, but the other one was an A+?
I think, Tucker, the only negative reaction that you're going to get walking out of it, which would impact the cinema score, is cliffhanger, I can't believe it.
That's fair, and I was feeling that when I walked out, so actually that's a reasonable reaction to have.
Yeah, very similar to if you remember all the way back to the cinema score we talked about for Knock at the Cabin. Very similar thing, I think, where it just leaves you some audience members on a sour note, maybe.
Cliffhanger's always a bad thing. That's why Infinity War flopped.
Exactly. Yes. Transformers, Tucker. Let's roll out and talk about Transformers Rise of the Beasts. $404 million worldwide. Initially was looking to be a big ol' flopperoonie, just like some of the other films this month, but ended up being number 2 at the box up for in terms of opening weekend, and has consistently done well for itself, I'd say, week after week, just modestly chugging along, plugging away at that box office, and now it's pretty solid. I mean, it's doubled its budget worldwide. That's not accounting for marketing after all, but hey, still, it's solid. If we're looking at all the movies this month that we're going to talk about, not among the worst. Not even among the worst by far.
No, though, actually, and I was doing a little tab through each of these, looking at the lovely little Rotten Tomato meter icons we have next to all of them. The only rotten movie that we got this month, which is interesting because there's actually been a couple of middlingly received movies.
Yes.
But I think, well, actually, you might like The Flash less than this, but I certainly would say that Rise of the Beast was the worst movie that I saw this month. So I'm not happy this is making money. I'm happy in sort of the box office analyst sense that, okay, good multiple studios are making money and it's not only just one thing. But also, I thought this was a bad movie, and so I don't like that people are seeing it, because then they might make more bad movies. Yeah.
Now, if we look here, and I say that...
Oh, Jesus! What is this Bumblebee poster you got?
Oh, sorry. My mistake.
Nasty.
My mistake. But
I didn't know there was a Bumblebee head stack.
This is the biggest Transformers opening since Age of Extinction. It actually opened higher than The Last Night, the last Michael Bay film of the franchise.
Interesting. Yeah, let me get some numbers on that.
Yeah, well, and I found that very interesting as well, because we have this idea of these Bay Bay Transformers films just doing numbers, being $billion smash hits. Yeah. But you have to remember that The Last Night is the one that killed that series of Transformers films. So the audiences were fed up with it, and now we're all about the Beast, baby.
It's interesting because it did open bigger, and actually significantly bigger, with a domestic opening of $61 million for Rise of the Beast versus last night's 44.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Significant.
That's almost 20 more. But costing about the same, and overall making significantly less. Of course, Rise of the Beast has not finished its theatrical run, but let's be honest, it probably mostly has.
We're over a month in. Yeah.
Yeah. Last night ended at 605 worldwide, and most of that actually came from the international box office, with $475 million worldwide for last night, and only a paltry 256 here.
Yeah.
So I wonder what accounts for that difference. Maybe just competition. Maybe I don't actually know what the this movie's release in China was like.
No, me neither. But I mean, Bay famously, especially Age of Extinction, but also The Last Night did include some things that made it popular amongst the Chinese market, some Chinese representation in the film.
Yeah.
Rise of the Beast doesn't do any of that. Maybe this movie was big in, Peru or wherever they go in it,
Yeah, where do they go? I don't even remember.
Something like that.
Honestly, Noah Diaz. Let me see if I can remember anything else.
Air
Razor.
This movie didn't even debut at number 1 in its opening weekend. It opened second to Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah. Which mostly just shows the strength of that movie and not necessarily the weakness of this movie, because obviously it is opening bigger than the last couple Transformers movies. It's doing totally fine for itself. It's made double its budget back already. So this is a totally serviceable, made its money back, comfortable summer release. But Spider-Verse is just something special. And what was the second weekend drop like on Spider-Verse? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't remember.
I mean, it would have had to have been around 50 or something like that, because with a domestic opening of 120, if it was over 61 million its second week, then that's sub 50 actually.
Yes. So yeah, sub 50%, which you would expect for a film that just had massive, fantastic word of mouth buzz like that. And this obviously had a 67% drop in its second weekend, which is what I think movies just seem to be getting this month, which is sad, but also the result of making maybe not very good movies that came out this month.
Yeah.
And if we want to get to one of those, shall we get to one of those, Tucker?
One of the bad movies? Probably the flop of this year, or the flop of the decade so far.
The biggest flop in the history of Warner Brothers Pictures. It's none other than The Flash.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so let's just start at the top. Let's start at the numbers here. A total of $262 million worldwide, 156 international, and 105 domestic.
Yeah.
And The Flash had a quick. I was about to say a slow death, but no, it was a very quick death. It's just sort of been
quick.
Tumbling down that hill as a carcass of the box office.
Yeah.
As I said, we'll end up losing about $200 million for Warner Brothers. Just a massive loss on this thing, because the reported budget is $210 million, but it has been said over and over again, this movie's been in development hell for about 10 years now, and certainly the budget has to be bigger than that. But will we ever truly know? I think we will at some point. But it's gonna be dark. It's gonna be bleak for Warner Brothers.
This is gonna be a notorious moment in, I would say, film history, because this film shows the difference. Or at least all the flaws with the DCEU just combined into one fucking cesspool and shat out. And then, luckily, this one time, unlike something like Suicide Squad, people are like, no, we're not doing this again. We're not falling for it again. We're not giving it our money.
Yeah,
we're gonna make it fail. It's gonna drop quicker than almost
drop like a
anything
stone.
we've seen.
Yeah,
quicker than almost anything we've seen following the box office in the course of almost a year. Some crazy statistics here that this big budget superhero summer blockbuster movie in development for a long time had the number 81 worst second weekend drop ever.
Yeah.
I mean, 72% is insane.
This was Warner Brothers' big movie of the year. This is the one that they thought was that, frankly, let's be honest, they thought this was going to make $1 billion. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And it's this. And Tucker, there's been lots of speculation as to why The Flash flopped. And I want to ask you, because there was some tweet that was like, "Oh, it flopped because all the cameos leaked on Twitter, or they screened it for a bunch of people before it came out for free for fan screenings or whatever." And I don't buy that. I mean, you don't need. That's not the kind of people that make a movie make a bunch of money.
That's true.
The people who pay attention to that sort of thing are a minuscule amount in terms of what makes a film money. So why didn't those people go to see it? Is it superhero fatigue? Is it I don't care about the Flash? What is it? What do you think, Tucker?
I think that when it comes to DC's successes, I think the Flash as a character just doesn't have enough draw. And I say that, but the Flash show is one of the most popular TV shows of the last
10 seasons
decade.
Or something like that.
So I really think superhero fatigue mixed with obviously mixed word of mouth coming into it. Like it didn't open big, and it should have opened big for what they were expecting. But I think the biggest problem this movie has is because it was so mixed, it had incredible drop-offs. I mean, if this movie had held better, we wouldn't be... It would have, it'd be over 300 million by now. We'd be like, okay, it didn't do terribly. It didn't do great for itself, but it's not like the worst thing ever. But having meteoric drop-offs week to week because it was poorly received and just across the board, everyone was like, no, I'm not dealing with this again. I don't know. The drop-offs are really what clues me into something is different here, because that just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, and if you want to ask me, I think it's, 2 weeks before this, we had a film open that is about ostensibly the same premise, superhero multiverse story, that comes from a much more revered source material. Material being like, in that terms, I mean, Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
Whereas The Flash comes out of the DCEU, which people, I think the general audiences find very confusing as compared to the MCU, and
this
lacking
one does not help
quality-wise.
it.
No, exactly.
Which I think is actually very interesting. As a person that's been watching the DCU and can tell you where all the characters show up and what the cameos are and what the lineage of these movies is, I was hoping for The Flash to literally be what Flashpoint as a comic was, is to actually just wipe the slate clean, establish just a handful of things. We're getting into the DCU coming up, not very soon, but soon enough. And it just didn't do that. And so it kind of just feels like a flag waving in the wind, like it's just kind of hanging off. It's like, oh, it's there. And it's a weird tail end. But it didn't feel like an event or culmination, which frankly I was expecting it to.
Yeah. And if I can sort of presume more why this film didn't do well, I think I have to go back to the thing of it's not accessible for general audiences.
Very true.
I was listening to the Weekly Planet podcast, which I do every week.
What a fucking shocker.
And James on there was saying he was talking to his normal friends, as he calls them, and talking. We don't have any of those.
No,
we don't have normal friends. His friends
maybe
who
my brother
don't,
is the closest.
yeah, his friends who don't know about any of this stuff and don't know when movies come out.
Yeah.
The general population, frankly. And he told a story about how he was trying to explain to them what happens in The Flash and what leads up to it and the events that transpire in it, and they're just they just didn't get it. So because they were asking so wait, I thought Ben Affleck was Batman, and James said, well he is. And he's like, but you're saying Michael Keaton is Batman. And he's like, in this movie he is. And he's like, so is Ben Affleck no longer Batman? And James said, yes and no, but kind of. And that's just the thing that people think.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to make it simple for them. You can't have spoilers for The Flash, 3 Batmen show up, and then expect people to be hunky-dory with it. It's confusing for them. They want something simple that they can understand and they can like. And The Flash is not that movie.
Yeah. Goddamn. This is going to be a fun one to also sort of check in on retrospectively as we do maybe a post-mortem for the DCEU. Because, as I said, this is kind of all of the DCEU's problems mixed into one. Lack of continuity, confusing stuff, not necessarily selling its characters the best, not being well received, not making much money. I think the most damning fact that we have on here, of course, we've been talking about these drops, but below Wonder Woman 1984 is hilarious. That is laughably bad, because that was not only in the pandemic, but also day and date on HBO Max. Now Max, the one to watch. That's just terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. What else do we have? It fell to number 8. It wasn't even in the top 5 for its third weekend. Barely in the top 10.
Holy shit.
Over 2 weeks to earn $100 million domestically. And maybe getting into the whole Batman thing of it all. 70% of this movie's opening weekend audience was above the age of 25, which is much, much higher than we commonly see with opening weekend demographics. I have some other demographic information throughout as well. And I mean, that's got to be Michael Keaton, right? I mean, that was what they were cashing in on, that Keaton nostalgia from 1989 or 1991. And I don't know, that's just not the main people you're targeting to go to your movie anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Anywhoozleby.
Let's get off of this.
Let's stroll over to The Flash's weekend release partner, Elemental.
Yeah.
Pixar's Elemental. And this is an interesting one. This is a very interesting one for very different reasons than The Flash was interesting. So, starting off with the numbers, a total box office worldwide of $256 million, 113 of that domestic, 142 of that international. Now, this one had a very poor opening box office,
Yes.
29 million, the second lowest ever Pixar opening weekend debut,
Crazy.
second only to Toy Story, which had just like $500,000 less.
Yeah, and which
as,
also
like,
doesn't count. I mean,
No, yeah.
Not only was Pixar not a known entity at that point, but also inflation exists. And if
Yes,
you
of course.
do inflation, of course, that's going to jump easily above. So, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes. But
But,
I think it's important to note that Elemental is kind of the little Pixar movie that could,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. And I think we can attribute a lot of this success, or the comparative success, the week after week
Yeah.
success, because it's not dropping off precipitously. In fact, in a lot of international markets, namely South Korea, is just doing numbers for Elemental. This movie has seen positive week after week uptick, actually.
that does not happen.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
It's not happening necessarily in the United States, but
Yeah, yeah.
internationally, they sort of went with this staggered release schedule
Yeah.
internationally,
I
where it
believe
opened.
It just came out in the UK like last week.
Yeah, which is very strange, but has worked in its favor. The positive word of mouth, it is
Yes.
certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
And
We
an A
both
cinema
quite
score.
enjoyed it. A cinema score.
Yeah.
They also seem to be like now actually advertising what the movie is about, which they
Being
didn't
romance,
seem to be
yeah.
doing. Which they didn't seem to be doing beforehand, focusing the one viral marketing thing on Claude, who you can see on the poster there.
Yeah, you can.
But just so strange.
Yeah,
Elemental.
it is a weird movie because we did not have high hopes for it in, I think, almost any regard. Of course, notoriously last year, Lightyear was a big flop, and luckily this is doing better than that now that it's growing and holding better. But having very poor reception out of Cannes really took the wind out of the sails of this movie. And so we're like, okay, it's probably not going to be very good, and it's probably not going to make much money. And it certainly didn't on its opening. I think another symptom of this movie being released into maybe the most crowded marketplace of the last 5 years.
Several years, yeah.
But the fact that its animated competition, being Spider-Verse, has sort of wrapped up its huge run, and there isn't another animated movie really competing with it. I think that it's holding the family audience in a
sure.
really nice way, and it's also one that you can see just sort of sticking around in theaters for a couple of matinee showtimes, getting those $5 kid ticket prices. And I think the best thing that we can say about this movie is that by the end of its run, it will probably be the highest grossing animated movie produced by Disney since the pandemic, even
Yes.
beating out Encanto, which was a big hit, but mostly on Disney Plus.
Yes.
And so, regardless of this movie not doing well in comparison to pre-pandemic Pixar at the height of their business, this is actually their biggest success, and they are going uphill. So if Lightyear didn't kill them, Elemental certainly won't, especially with more certified hits coming in the barrel. With
if
Inside Out and Toy Story.
Yeah, they do have some sequels loaded up as surefire box office kindling, I guess we'll say. And as you said earlier, this is maybe like, in terms of original animated features, it was the first one to pass the domestic century mark since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And even I saw there's some arguable things of like what counts as original, but maybe the first since 2018 to do so as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm happy, frankly, that this original project, this project very close to its director's heart, is able to do these kind of numbers and actually change the narrative in terms of what people thought about it, what we all saw the box office doing with Elemental. That's really cool, and not something that you see happen a lot, frankly. Like with The Flash, it flopped, and it just flopped harder and harder and harder. And we're like, The Flash is a flop. But you look at Elemental, and it's like, Pixar doesn't have the juice anymore. Big flop from Elemental. That's too bad. And then turned itself around a little bit. will probably still end up being a loss for Disney Pixar.
Yes.
With a budget of
Theatrically,
200
yes.
with a budget of $200 million, mind you. Get those budgets under control, Disney. By God,
What are
please,
you
please
doing?
God. But as you said, we're doing an uphill right now. They have another original project coming out next with Elio,
yeah.
and then Inside Out 2 at this time next summer. So,
Yeah, so I think Pixar is in an okay place right now. We were saying doom and gloom. We were saying
We were
maybe
doom and gloom.
Peter Stone won't have a job come this time next year. But I think this movie is safe, and I also think that the last thing that can really save it is if it's popular on Disney Plus, which is not
Probably
guaranteed,
likely,
but
yeah.
it's possible, and I would agree that it's likely because that is how Disney's other post pandemic and post pandemic animated movies have gotten their laurels. I mean, Luca, Turning Red, Soul, Encanto, and Raya and the Last Dragon all did very well on Disney Plus. The one outlier being Strange World and Lightyear, actually,
Yeah.
last year. But Pixar is in a better place right now than they were last year.
I agree.
So Pixar, you close to my heart. Elemental, very close to my heart. I'm glad that this isn't just dour, because last year we were talking about Lightyear. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like there's no redeeming factor to this, but Elemental's pulling itself out of the gutter.
Yeah. Okay, Tucker, let's get out of the realm of talking about, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of losses on films, and let's scale it down a little bit and talk
Yeah.
about some successes, actually. With another June 16th, this is our art house, our classic, like, expanding every week kind of thing. Asteroid City, Wes Anderson's Asteroid City.
Yeah.
Worldwide total of $39.5 million, internationally with 14, domestically with nearly 25. On a budget of $25 million, has made that back already. Another certified fresh on RT, 7.0 on IMDb, and a B cinema score, little low, I think.
Yeah. Well,
But,
it's interesting. I actually believe that's pretty consistent for Wes Anderson
Really?
movies.
Okay.
And I don't know off the top of my head, but I also believe this is pretty consistent across the board for Wes Anderson movies. Like,
Yeah.
Solid Rotten Tomatoes, solid IMDb, solid box office. They just appeal to that art house crowd. And even though this movie, I actually don't know if it's turning a profit theatrically. I think we can assume this has a significantly less marketing budget than what we usually say is doubling. You do about the same production budget for marketing, but I can't imagine they spent $25 million in marketing this. So it's probably close to, if not eked by, that profitability margin.
Yeah.
Just really what we're going to have to see is if this movie, unlike French Dispatch, is able to get into that awards buzz by the end of the year, because that's what Wes Anderson has sold his success on at the height of his career. And I just I'm not going to lie, Wes, I love you. I don't think this one's got the sauce.
No, I don't think so either. But the big story about this is, of course, it has the highest per theater average since La La Land.
Whoa, that's true? Wow.
Yeah. Which is a nice laurel to take. Now that it's been 7 years since La La Land came out.
Yeah.
And the June 23rd expansion, the wide expansion of this thing, was Wes Anderson's biggest opening weekend ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as I said, Tucker, we do have some demographic information here. And as annoying as it was, people doing the Wes Anderson TikTok trend of just being like, I centered a thing on my desk. I'm just like Wes Anderson. 64% of that opening weekend crowd was under the age of 35, which is, your prime TikTok Wes Anderson loving audience.
Yeah, Gen Z and millennials. I think it's interesting that a director that I would say probably mostly appealed to older, more film-going people when he started, that he has shifted his demographic towards younger people, as both Letterboxd and TikTok and the combined power of all of that and Twitter and young people film culture has really exploded in the last 7-8 years. Obviously, it's pulling in some numbers for him. So it's just interesting to see the demographic shift very suddenly towards, hey, because Wes Anderson stuff is popular on Twitter and TikTok and with Letterboxd users specifically, they're showing up for these movies. I think that's very cool.
I mean, it also helps that Wes Anderson by now is probably the closest a director of his ilk can get to being a household name, frankly.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
I mean, he's at the height of his powers, and Asteroid City kind of proves that in its quality and then its box office returns. And, of course, because of all that success that it saw, the studios made the galaxy-brain decision to put it on VOD yesterday.
Oh, Now, I don't know off the top of my head what kind of money this movie was making last week. But I think I'm just looking up French Dispatch.
Yeah.
French Dispatch actually has a higher total worldwide, and most of that is actually coming from international box office.
Yeah.
French Dispatch made $30 million internationally, and Asteroid City has only made 14, so it's half.
Yeah.
It's doing better domestically than French Dispatch did, but I wonder if that's because Asteroid City hasn't fully released across the world.
Maybe this release strategy was a bit different for this. Maybe they didn't focus on those international markets. Regardless, as I said, the VOD decision really just kneecapped this thing, and that's been a sad story that many movies this year have had to face, and many movies this month have faced, and I'm sure many movies going forward will face, because that's just the way that studios have decided to treat their films theatrically, is to give them like a month, unless they're like a massive hit like Mario or like Across the Spider-Verse, which I don't know if it has a VOD release set currently.
Does Elemental have one?
I don't know actually. I can Google that quick. But Tucker, this is a look ahead to July. But you want some news that'll make you sad a little bit?
Mission Impossible got a 30-day window?
No.
Oh.
Joyride got a 2-week.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's coming out on VOD at the end of the month. Yeah. Yes. What was I supposed to? Oh, Elemental VOD. Yes.
Yeah. I feel like I either heard one way or the other, which is not helpful.
Oh,
maybe
okay.
I didn't hear it all.
Okay. Well, if you look up Elemental VOD, it gives me some sort of I don't know what this is. AWS Elemental Media Package. I don't think that's right. I think this is some sort of
Elemental Pixar VOD release date.
I don't know if we have one yet.
Okay.
Just a nice little aside there. Tucker, let's move on quickly before we get too deep in the weeds here. Let's talk about No Hard Feelings. Another small scale release that is doing. Check those numbers. Check that budget. Check that domestic total, or that worldwide total. In fact,
nice.
Pretty well. Pretty good.
Yeah.
$45 million budget on this thing, has made in the ballpark of $70 million thus far.
Yeah.
42 domestically, 27 internationally. The big comeback for the R-rated the R-rated comedy at the box office. And how's it doing? Solid.
Yeah, totally fine.
A single thumbs up, I'd say.
Yeah. I think what this shows is that there is still an appeal towards mid-budget films. $45 million is not small, and frankly, I think it's higher than I would have expected this kind of movie to be budgeted at. Most of the other comedies that we've seen released theatrically have been in that sort of 15 to 20 budget range. I'm not exactly sure, frankly, where the budget went for this movie.
Jennifer Lawrence?
Maybe, but also I feel like this was kind of a passion project thing for her to rejuvenate her career, so I can't imagine she would have asked for that much, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
She knows her worth. And I did want to look up here, Gene Stupinski's previous R-rated film, Good Boys, had a $20 million budget.
Yeah.
So, hey, I don't know. If Jennifer Lawrence is cutting a sweet check from this thing, can't really blame her. She did produce this as well. It's the first theatrical release under her excellent Cadaver production label.
I didn't realize that was her production company. That's a hilarious name.
Yes. The first was, of course, Causeway from last year, but that did not get a theatrical release. At least not a wide one. But yeah.
Yeah, good overall. Made its budget back. Well received across the board. I feel like this is one that will be pretty big when it hits streaming. I'm not exactly sure which streaming service it'll go to.
Oh, it's Sony, so probably like Stars.
Yeah, maybe
or
Netflix
something
down
else.
The line.
Yeah.
I can see this being very big on Netflix. 100%
yeah,
honest.
I agree. But yeah, a solid drop, or not a very steep drop. It'll earn some solid numbers over the July 4th weekend. Just a nice modest success in a month that is very stratified in terms of box office happenings and goings on.
Yeah. we just talked about a movie that had a budget higher than I expected it to be. And now let's jump over to a movie that has a budget higher than almost anything should be, which is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, budgeted at $300 million. Of course, it's not where we usually start the conversation about movies, but this is notoriously high. Our bottom fact here, 13th most expensive film ever made unadjusted for inflation.
Might be higher than that. I've seen some estimates putting it around maybe like 330 million even. But
Jesus
the listed budget on, the widely accepted budget is around 300 million, 295, 300.
But also, regardless, higher than it has any business being.
It's so
this movie
high.
doesn't look $100 million more expensive than The Flash.
No. It doesn't. Although, Tucker, still not the highest budgeted film that we've talked about this year. Of course, that title belongs to Fast X at $340 million.
Yeah, I don't think we gave that enough attention when we talked about it. We might have actually.
I don't know. Who's to say?
Both of these guys, what are you fucking doing?
What are we doing out here? Okay, and let's talk about the rest of the numbers. So it has not made back that budget yet. It's made $255 million worldwide. It'll
make
hit
that
there.
Budget. Yeah,
it'll hit. But
how far past that is really the golden dollar question here.
I'm going to say not far.
Certainly something we will take a look back at when we do our next month's episode.
Especially since I think the target demo for this is going to get dragged away by Mission Impossible very quickly.
Oh yeah.
So bad news in the cards for Indy, I'd say. But it is the lowest opening for an indie film since Raiders of the Lost Ark, the very first one, back in 1981.
Which, again, doesn't really count unadjusted for inflation. And also, even though it's Steven Spielberg, not a property that had any history, you expect these things to build. And the fact that it's even close to Raiders is not a good sign.
Yes. Now, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Speaking of adjusting for inflation and comparing this film to Raiders, Tucker, I saw someone throw this out, and I did check the numbers myself. Adjusted for inflation, tell me what you think the budget of Raiders of the Lost Ark is. Let's play a fun little game here.
I don't even know what the normal budget is.
Just throw a number for.
Let's just throw a number out there. 150.
150? Okay, adjusted for inflation, budget of Raiders is $60 million. Tucker,
wow.
Adjusted for inflation, tell me how much you think Raiders made, adjusted for inflation, so in like today dollars.
Yeah.
How much it made in its original theatrical run.
Original theatrical run? I don't even know. Oh, I would find that information, but 800 million?
$1 billion. 60 million budget, $1 billion. Just the kind of thing that would never happen today, I think.
Jesus Christ.
And this is a far cry from that. This is another sad con story as well. Debuted to 52% on Rotten Tomatoes there.
Yeah.
Did not set a good impression. And has sort of risen from there, certainly. But is not certified fresh. Has a 6.9 on IMDb, a B+ cinema score, which is actually quite poor since a lot of things get an A. Bad stuff. Bad stuff.
Yeah, I think that the competition here is the problem for indie. Because we didn't like this movie, but people seem to be enjoying it fine enough.
Yeah.
It's a solid enough summer blockbuster, send off for a character. No one's complaining too loudly. I think, again, as I was getting at, the fact that we're back-to-back summer releases here, and even in the week prior to this, multiple, I guess Flash and Elemental were 2 weeks before this. But regardless, it's so crowded that this movie didn't have its own space to breathe. And opening at $60 million as opposed to unadjusted for inflation, King of Crystal Skull opening to $100 million. That's what you would have expected here.
Yes.
And it's certainly what Disney and Lucasfilm were wanting. And so I think at the end of the day, this is not going to be the more annoying or like apparent flop to The Flash, but I think in reality it's quite comparable. Costing more, frankly, from being a more revered franchise.
Absolutely.
This is a failure. Pretty much across the board.
Tucker, if we want to box office doctor this thing a little bit, as we did with The Flash, I do want to ask and maybe give my perspective a little bit on why it flopped. I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of reasons. I think obviously the crowded season is a big mark. I'll say, like, if we're talking about household names, like we were a little bit ago with Wes Anderson, not having Steven Spielberg attached to this thing,
True.
I think
Totally
hurt it. I think, frankly, and I don't want to say this to be mean, but Harrison Ford's age, I think, also was an issue here.
Yeah.
I mean, he was old in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and that was 15 years ago. I think your average audience goer is going to be like, Harrison Ford's so old. Like,
Yeah.
he already had his send-off in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. We all saw it
True.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go
and
see...
that movie made $790 million unadjusted for inflation. Probably close to, if not over, $1 billion adjusted for inflation.
Yeah, and I don't know if I want to go see geriatric Indiana Jones running around. It doesn't seem exciting for me, especially when it's not directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I kind of think they're all right.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And what's interesting is you talk about that age, the age of Harrison Ford as our lead actor here.
Mm-hmm.
The demographics show that, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
The fact that we have 58% of the demographics for people who saw this movie over the age of 35 shows that there is a significant skew towards an older movie-going audience.
Yes.
And guess what? There are less older movie-going audience members than there are younger movie-going audience members. Families, people in their 20s that are just more excited about going to the cinema. That's where money really, really comes from. Is appealing to the younger demographic, and this just didn't do that. So
Yeah.
that's probably a big reason why this didn't especially open to as big, because the movies that appeal to that younger demographic are the ones that capture it and make $100 million on their opening weekend, and nothing this month did other than Spider-Verse.
I think, sadly, the Indiana Jones franchise just doesn't take up a lot of mind space in the minds of young moviegoers. I mean,
That's absolutely true.
we were 7 when Crystal Skull came out, and Tucker, what this is cynical, but it's like the way that movie franchises are run in the modern landscape. What have they done to keep up that IP since then? Exactly.
Actually, nothing.
I think actually nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe a video game or two.
Maybe since 2008. Maybe
Yeah.
there was like a 360 era one. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. There's not even a short run Disney Plus show.
Yeah, and when you have a movie budgeted at $300 million, you kind of need to put in some of that legwork. You need to figure something out. Preferably knock that budget down by half, probably.
Oh, easily.
Anyway, bad stuff for Indy. That's gonna end up being another one of the biggest flops, biggest bombs of the year.
Yeah.
And that rounded out our month of June. Opened on a high, ended on a low.
Yeah, and we had like a little bit of levity in the middle with Elemental and Asteroid City and No Hard Feelings doing like okay, like surprisingly for themselves, but like, I mean, okay. I guess Rise of the Beast also did fine, but like this is such an imbalance, or it's actually a balanced month. We got high successes, we got medium successes, we got low failures, we got incredible failures.
And it's just jam-packed. And we had this conversation, and I do want to talk about this before we get into the headlines and whatnot. I think that we both agree that maybe the most easily solvable and maybe the number one symptom of the varied box office outcomes of this month is just that there was week after week there was a new blockbuster. And I saw a great take on this on Twitter. I think I don't remember who it was, but someone said when you have a new blockbuster every weekend, sometimes multiple blockbusters on the same weekend, there is no block to bust. So we talked about this a while ago, maybe a week ago or so. We looked ahead to summer 2024. It's the same fucking thing. They're not. When are we going to learn our lesson here? Well, it's the same fucking thing right now. We'll see how the WGA strike and the SAG strike shake things up. Substantially, I would think.
Yes. Yeah. God, what a crowded month. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. July is actually less crowded if you think about it. I mean, we have 3 big movies as opposed to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, hey, that's something. And one of those is Barbenheimer.
Yep.
Anywho's headlines. Let's see if we can get through these in somewhat succinct matter and only pull out the ones that are really interesting. So, off the box office success, the smash hit of The Flash, Andy Muschietti was confirmed to be directing Batman: The Brave and the Bold, the big Batman movie coming from James Gunn's DCU.
Yeah.
Bad choice.
Tanner, what do you think the chances that this changes?
I'm going to say there's a 40% chance that he leaves the project.
I think it's...
Higher?
I can either see it being, number one, people were pretty happy with The Flash before it came out.
Yep.
Like, by all accounts, it was a pretty good movie, and the audiences were enjoying it. It was supposed to open pretty big, and so giving your next one of your next big projects to that same director, sure. So I think that's the reason why he got signed, and because of that, maybe James Gunn is happy with The Flash artistically.
Yeah.
And so he's like, hey, all I care about is Andy making another fun superhero movie. But I also can easily foresee the Andy Muschietti has parted ways with
Yes.
the DCU due to creative differences, which basically means your last movie flopped shit and lost us a ton of fucking dollars. You're off the project, buddy, but we can't say that.
Yeah, I agree. Let's run down the rest of the DCU news, and most of that is contained to Superman Legacy casting, because boy howdy did we get so much fucking casting for Superman Legacy this month. The big ones are David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan are our Clark Kent and Lois Lane. I'm pretty happy with this casting. I mean, we
Sure. I don't know either of these people, but that's fine by me.
Okay. And then just recently, in the last couple days, we have some supporting cast members that were filled out. Those include Isabella Merced as Hawk Girl, Edie Gathegi, I probably just butchered that guy's name, as Mr. Terrific, Anthony Kerrigan as Metamorpho, and Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner.
Yep. What's interesting about this is it shows that James Gunn is having fun with it.
Yep.
But, and as many people have said, I don't know if that's a good thing, to be 100% honest.
Yeah.
Like you're packing it full of some B, C tier characters that may be a big part of it, may not. There's mixed news coming out on what the story of this movie is even going to be, but a unfocused, kind of quirky beginning to the next phase of what DC movies can be might not be a good idea. But guess what? They signed James Gunn to be the head of this. Who the hell knows how long it's going to go? And you got what you signed up for.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Now, here I'll give my 2 cents on this thing, because I think this whole decision is really a coin flip. It could work to the universe's favor, or it could fall flat on its face, like a lot of other cinematic universes have tried to do, where they just get started too quickly. And that's the negative 50% of this outcome. The positive 50% of this outcome, I'm going to choose to look down that way. I'm going to look towards the light at the end of the tunnel here. I'm going to look for a silver lining. I'm going to say, we know James Gunn is very good at balancing a vast cast of characters. He did so with the Guardians films. He just did it with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where we get a good, solid character arc and ending arc for every one of those team members, even some that were introduced in that film. What I will also say is, I saw him mention that it's important for his Superman, at least, to be coming into a world of superheroes, as that will... He said something along the lines of, I really want to dive into the parallel lives of Clark Kent and Superman, and how they are parallel. Superman coming in, or Clark Kent coming into this world of the Daily Planet and Metropolis, and Superman coming into a world of his coworkers being other superheroes and coming up in that world. And he said something about how you can't do that Superman thing without having already present superheroes in your story. Sure. So, granted, sure, we'll see how it all shakes out. But regardless, I'm positive. I'm trying to be positive on Superman
Legacy.
Legacy.
As well.
Yeah.
I think that sounds awesome. Yeah. I like James Gunn. I like weird superhero characters. It's gonna work for me.
Yeah.
But will it make money is really the ultimate question.
Yes.
And that is something we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But we also had a lot of other just announcements of people are working on things and companies are doing things. And Jesus Christ, what the fuck is all this?
All right, so let's run down the rest of these. In the superhero realm, El Muerto has been delayed indefinitely. This is so sad. Bad Bunny has left the project. They'll have to recast El Muerto. Bad Bunny was the whole reason they were making this movie, and now he's left the movie.
Oh, is that true? He left?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, then that movie's never happening.
Yeah, probably not.
Tanner Dykstra, world's biggest El Muerto fan,
of course,
knows all the information about this movie's production. Had they started filming?
No. Apparently
and when
they
was
were
supposed to come out?
January of next year.
That's not.
Yeah.
That movie was never going to happen.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, we kind of already knew it was never going to happen because what the fuck? But you could have told me like 2 months ago that they hadn't started filming. I'm like, uh-oh. Mm-hmm. And it's even more of an uh-oh now.
Yeah. Speaking of uh-ohs in terms of release dates, Hobbs and Reyes is the mysterious Hobbs Returns, the Fast and Furious franchise film that The Rock teased, and we had some other information on it. It is still, according to him, expected to come out before Fast X Part 2. Just a nice team-up of Luke Hobbs and Damian Reyes, what's his name? Jason Momoa.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Reyes.
That's okay.
Now, Tanner, refresh the audience's mind here for a second. When is Fast X Part 2 supposed to come
out? On IMDb, it says 2025.
Okay.
I don't think that's an official release date from Universal, but I think that's just like an expected release date.
Yeah. And that also means that probably with a full year in between, or 8 months in between, Hobbs and Reyes needs to come out before that.
Yes.
And the movie has not started production as far as I know.
It can't.
Means either, well, that's a great point, but means either that movie will be sloppy and rushed, which is certainly possible.
Yep.
Or both of these movies are coming out in 2 and 3 years, which I think is maybe the more likely scenario.
I'd say probably more likely. What else do we have here? Let's talk about the 45 Mattel branded films that are in development.
I think, the most interesting thing on this entire list.
40 fucking 5 Mattel branded films. Let's wrap with. Do we need to? Do we really need to? We don't need to is the answer. I mean, Tucker, did you read? This was revealed in a New Yorker article. And did you see any of these like ideas that are like the ones that are probably towards the forefront of development? You have a J.J. Abrams Hot Wheels film that is grounded and gritty and emotional, supposedly. You have a Magic 8-Ball horror film that is so close to being R-rated, apparently. You have a Rock'em Sock'em Robots film with Vin Diesel attached. You have a Polly Pocket film. You have an Uno film that's apparently a heist movie.
Yeah. From what I'm reading, reportedly starring Lil Yachty.
Lil Yachty, apparently, in that one.
Daniel Kaluuya producing a Barney movie.
Thank you. Tucker, do any of these entice you?
Honestly, I'm kind of down. I know it sounds stupid, but like, I don't think almost any of these movies will be good. We will have to see. Barbie impressions are very high. I expect to like that movie from Greta Gerwig, a director that I like. But I kind of like the idea of just trying it. Because most of it's going to be only tangentially related to the fucking product anyway. It's essentially just going to be a bunch of random fucking movies with like a racing movie and a heist movie and a fucking cop movie and whatever. With a logo slapped on it that's based on a board game. And I think that sounds fun. Also because probably only 5 or 6 of these are ever actually going to happen.
Oh, we're not getting all 45 of these.
No,
That'd be insane.
Course.
Yeah.
But even if this is a 10-year plan and we get more than we're expecting, I think it's kind of a funny idea to like have just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's funny. I think it's worth the bit.
It is funny.
We can write the Mattel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, if you will.
Whoa! Finally, a good MCU. Let's see what else. Oh, speaking of Greta Gerwig, a director that you like, a director that I like, she is signed on for 2 Chronicles of Narnia films for Netflix.
Jeez.
Yeah. Think those things are getting made. Netflix loves canceling things.
I don't think they like canceling big idea things though. Like, and also movies, they don't really seem to cancel movies, at least as far as I know. They're like canceling shows after 1 season. But Greta Gerwig signed on Narnia, a
Here's
big
what I'll
IP.
say. Yeah.
I think these are happening.
Here's what I'll say. Netflix loves... Here's what I'll say. Netflix loves saying, we're gonna make a series of films. There's gonna be so many films. We're gonna make the Army of the Dead franchise.
Yeah.
We're gonna make, I just had another
Gray
one off
Man,
the top.
Red Notice.
We're gonna make Gray Man. We're gonna make Red Notice.
Yeah.
We're gonna make all these series of films. We're gonna make Fear Street be a thing. We're gonna make.
Well,
all
they did
these...
actually. They successfully made 3 of those movies.
I think they're maybe working on more, but who's to say if those are ever coming out? Netflix loves the big promise and then delivering like 1 or 2 things. Hey, but hey, that's 2. Yeah. That's 2, baby. Put them on the board. But here's what, in terms of Greta Gerwig directing these things, she said that she would like to be like her release date friendo, Christopher Nolan, who does things like The Dark Knight, which is, his take on a popular franchise IP, but also gets to do original stuff like Inception and The Prestige. And I'm totally down for that.
Yeah, totally. I think what's interesting, watching the careers of art directors that are pulled into IP stuff for major studios is they go one of 2 ways. They go the Jon Favreau route, where he gets sucked in and he never leaves, or like J.J. Abrams or someone like that. Or they go, Ryan Johnson route, where they're like, hey, I made a couple movies, or Christopher Nolan, as you said, where like, I made some big movies and big properties for big studios, but I'm also a creative director of my own, and now we'll have Knives Out.
Yeah.
Coming off the heels of Last Jedi. He's like, what? That's a fucking whiplash moment.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of Greta Gerwig becoming a bigger household name. Having IP stuff definitely helps with that. And Barbie is definitely going to be her biggest movie yet,
ever,
obviously. Yeah. But I hope that she doesn't get sucked in like a Taika Waititi does.
I certainly hope not, and I don't think she will.
Yeah.
But speaking of, big time art house directors, Wes Anderson has announced his next film, which will be an espionage thriller starring Benicio del Toro, and he's apparently in every shot of the film.
This idea is
absolutely
so
why
insane.
Not? Yeah. Let's not forget, though, that Wes Anderson also has a short film coming out later this year.
He does.
Yes. The Wonderful Life of Henry Sugar. So look forward to that as well.
Busy boy.
Busy boy, busy man. And then I got some release dates to throw at you here. I'll just rattle these off. George Clooney directed The Boys in the Boat releases on Christmas this year. It's a bit of a sports drama about a rowing team, as I understand it. Sure. Michael Mann's Ferrari also releases on December 25th, biopic about Enzo Ferrari. December, starring Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore, releases in theaters on November 17th, and it'll go to Netflix on December 1st. So yeah, just maybe some potential awards things lining up in terms of release dates.
Yeah. I've never heard of Boys in the Boat. If it's positioned as that and they have confidence in that, maybe.
Yeah.
But Ferrari and May December, I have way more confidence in being anything. I expect Boys in the Boat to come out and be like, oh, that happened?
Yeah, I agree. And last thing on here, because this isn't really news, I am lying to you, Tucker. The SAG strike begins. And I say that because at the time of recording, it begins in 5 hours. If they don't figure anything out in the next 5 hours. So, I'm going to say that the SAG is probably on strike as of right now, as of the time that you, the viewer, are watching this video. I could be way off. Forgive me if I am.
Yep. Tanner, let's wrap this up. We got 3 more things to talk about here.
Okay, let's do it. Last time on Backlot Banter, let's take a look in to see how some May releases are doing. We talked about Guardians of the Galaxy. That opened up May, the summer movie season, last month. It was at $750 million at the time that we talked about it. It is now at $839. Seems to be about done. It's on VOD now. Yeah.
But hey, that's pretty good for for after a month in theaters, making another $100 million.
Yeah, honestly,
that's solid, and it does put it close enough to that like $850 mark, where it's like this movie made its money back. Disney's comfortable with it. It's a successful film. It's not a smash, but it's nothing to sneeze at either.
Yeah. Fast X, it was at $525 last time we talked about it. Has risen to $722.
Yeah.
Better. But is it did double its budget. Hey, congratulations, Fast X. You did it. You did it. Good job. And Little Mermaid, last time we talked about, was at $225 million, has now arisen to $543. also doubled its budget. So, hey, good job, good job, Little Mermaid. You did it. You made it there. And then other paltry releases here. Book Club, About My Father, The Machine. Made a couple more $1 million, about in the range of $5 to $10 more millions of dollars. Any thoughts on any of these, Tucker? I just kind of rushed through those.
I don't give a fuck. I didn't see any of them.
Okay. Well, what about Guardians or Fast X or Little Mermaid?
Oh, it's about on track.
Okay.
Little Mermaid, probably lower than I would have expected.
Yeah.
Or would have maybe hoped for. I don't know. I'm a Disney shill, I guess.
Yeah, you're a Disney shill, I guess. All right. Let's look at something that we added last month. Sprung from the brilliant mind of one Tucker Hazel. The top 10 highest-grossing domestic films of 2023. Yep. Mario still solidly in that number one spot. Well,
nothing's gonna challenge it.
Yeah, it's not gonna.
I would be fucking floored if it wasn't number one by the end of the year.
I think it will be. And then Spider-Verse came in at number 2 now, $360 million. Number 3. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, close with 357. Little Mermaid, we just got done talking about, with $290 million domestically. And then Quantumania, still holding strong in that number 5 spot.
Godspeed, Quantumania.
Yeah.
So funny. Yeah, and which just still goes to show the power of the MCU, because this is one of the lowest performing and worst reviewed MCU movies, but it still makes more money than anything else.
Yeah,
largely.
I'll hand off the baton to you if you want to read out the rest of the top 10.
Yeah. We've also got the other 2 releases that were actually successful. John Wick Chapter 4 and Creed 3 at number 6 and 7. And then a couple of new releases rounding out the bottom here. Transformers: Rise of the Beast, $148 million. Fast X, $145 at number 9, and number 10. Indiana Jones, 128. And what I think most interesting here is this list would look very different, obviously, but very different if it was worldwide, because Fast X, we just got finished talking about, has 722 million worldwide, which means like almost 70%, 60% of its gross comes from the international market.
Yeah.
So even though Fast X is only number 9 here, that movie has made leagues more money than most of these movies will ever even sniff at.
Yeah.
So that's just something to keep in consideration.
That's true. Americans just aren't hungry for the La Familia anymore, and I think that's sad. I think that's sad.
Yeah.
All right, Tucker.
Fast X wasn't very good.
Yeah, that's true. July. Weird month, I'll say. Not nearly as slam jam packed as June was, but
Tanner, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing, as we've said. Insidious: The Red Door already came out. We know how that movie did opening weekend, and it's good. Well, the movie's not good. The movie's actually very bad.
It's very bad. We didn't review it.
Yeah.
But maybe we should have, because it was really fucking stupid.
Yeah, all right. We're looking down the barrel of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. We actually already reviewed that film, so you can find that on Backlot Banter. And that's jockeying for the top spot this month. It's jockeying for it. Then we, of course, have Barbenheimer, Oppenheimer, and Barbie both releasing on July 21st. You look to the end of the month, you have Haunted Mansion and Talk to Me coming out on July 28th. And rounding out the rest of this heavy month, or not. It's a good month. It's a good month for movies, let's say.
I think this is a good month.
Yeah.
And I think it's well balanced. I mean, I don't think that we'll have the problem of things cannibalizing each other.
Yeah, I agree.
Hopefully.
You have Joyride, which released the same weekend as Insidious: The Red Door. You have Theater Camp, which goes into limited release on July 14th. Biosphere, which released in theaters, limited release, and on VOD this past weekend. And on July 14th, we finally get to answer the question of, hey, what's the deal with How Do You Live? Because that movie releases in Japan on July 14th.
Yeah. But we probably won't get it for a while.
No, probably not for a while. But we will see. We'll get our first look at How Do You Live on July 14th.
It's true.
The first people ever outside of the creators of this film will get to see How Do You Live for the first time.
It could either be the worst marketing idea ever or the best marketing idea ever.
I don't know. Oh, and one thing that we don't put on here, Sound of Freedom is also a really weird thing that I'm sure we'll talk about next month, but we didn't put it on here because we are deep state. Anyway, July, our predictions for July.
Yeah. Wrapping it up.
Now, I begged and I pleaded, Tucker, to let me change my number 1 and 2 here. I begged and I pleaded with them day after day, but it didn't happen. So I'm sticking by my boy Tom.
Didn't let it happen because we've already seen 2 of these fucking movies.
That's
and
true,
so
we did.
I think if a cutoff, if there's any cutoff, it should be once we've seen one of the movies.
Mm-hmm. That's a fair point. And Tucker, I allow it, but I also wanted to be more right because I'll say it right here. I have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 at number 1, and when I wrote down my numbers for it, I said it was going to make $80 million. And I think that could be true. For a 5-day, I think that's going to hold true. Maybe even more. But I think Barbie's going to be bigger, regardless. Even with its 3-day opening. I'm saying, Tucker, I'm pitting a pin in this thing right here. $100 million for Barbie, I think.
Whoa, that'd be crazy.
It would be crazy.
Well, we've got... I think we've got a pretty comfortable 5 here. Obviously, I don't think there's anything else that would crack into this.
Mm-hmm.
But Haunted Mansion and Insidious are kind of question mark. Actually, Insidious is not a question mark. The movie's already out. It actually had a pretty big opening weekend. Yeah. Haunted Mansion is a question mark. Does Disney have the sauce to put some butts in seats here? They've been marketing it fine. But then, really, it's Barbenheimer that will... Or as I would say, Barbenheimer, but people seem to glom onto a different version of that. This is going to be an exciting month. And regardless of how these movies do, because I don't have the extreme faith that you do in Barbie, but I think both of them will be comfortably successful. This is going to be one of the most notorious days in film history.
I agree.
So I just can't wait for it to be here.
Yeah, I agree.
God, Jesus Christ, it's so exciting.
All right, Tucker, let me list out the rest of my numbers here, and then I'm going to try and convince you on Barbie here in a moment. Oppenheimer, $60 million. Insidious The Red Door, I said 25. It actually opened to 32, so I'm already low on that one. And Haunted Mansion, 20, I'm going to say. So, Tucker, let me rap with you about Barbie right here and why it's probably going to be number 1 this month. This is coming from a personal, anecdotal place, but I think that's important. My coworkers know about Barbie, and let me tell you a little bit about my coworkers. I won't say their names, but the 3 people in the story, 3 people actually, are the oldest person in my office, and he is aware of Barbie. He was watching the trailer today at work. He knows when it comes out. He said that his wife, this is an old man, I'll say. I don't mean to disparage him, but he is an old man. His wife is taking 25 people to go see Barbie opening weekend. This is an elderly couple, Tucker.
Holy shit.
Likewise, my coworker who is my age, like 22, 23 years old, is going to the early Wednesday night screening of this film. Tucker, people across the age range know that Barbie is coming out. They are excited for Barbie. They have seen the marketing for Barbie.
Wow.
They are excited. They're going to go see it. $100 million opening weekend. I'll say even... I'm not going to say easy, because it might be like 95 or something like that. But I'm going to say $100 million opening weekend.
Okay. All right. Well, that is a admittedly anecdotal, but very strong reason to be confident in it. And we'll see. I want movies to be successful, especially coming off a month of a couple of major flops. I want all these movies to make their money back because they seem to be from actual creatives of some repute. Which I would not put in the camp of Andy Muschietti and Stephen Cable Jr. But July is going to be a lot of fun to talk about.
It is.
In retrospect, it's going to be a lot of fun to go through. Of course, expect reviews for Mission Impossible and Barbie and Oppenheimer. And, well, we won't see How Do You Live, but eventually you'll get a review of that. We already have a review for Joyride. And Haunted Mansion and Talk to Me, probably. We'll probably see those. We'll probably review those. So, lots coming down the pipeline. Busy month, fun month. And we will see you guys next month when we have seen all these movies and know how they did.
A post-Barbenheimer world.
Did?